Hey folks, Doug Blake with Body Design University. In this video, I want to talk to you about the human movement system and a review of it in chapter 14. Now, chapter 14 is the flexibility training concepts chapter. And basically, NASM wants to make sure, right? And this is why they did it for you. They want to make sure you got everything you needed to know about the HMS, or you could substitute the term kinetic chain, right? That you needed to get from chapters 5 and chapter 12. Because that's generally where they're going to be referring back to. And again, chapter 14, very important chapter, moderate to higher priority, depending on which exam you actually get. But I just wanted to go over, make sure you're clear that once you get to chapter 14, you should be very familiar. And if you're not, you need to go back and review the terminologies and the concepts here. And so the HMS, or the human movement system, or the kinetic chain, you'll see that in chapter 5, of course. Review wants you to, make sure, they want to make sure that you understand these basic definitions. Now, I will say this. They did a great job of just summarizing some things to help you. So postural distortion, and I'm looking over at the sidebar definitions. Postural distortion patterns are predictable patterns of muscle imbalances. Remember, chapter 12, you had your static postural assessments that you did to check for one of the three syndromes that you might have: pes planus, upper cross, lower cross postural distortion systems. That's the static. And then, of course, in the dynamic, what would you do? Overhead squat assessment, pulling assessment, pushing assessment, single leg, whatever. And you need to know and memorize those overactive, underactive muscles. Muscle imbalance, right? Two sides of a joint. You see that in figures 14.4, 14.15, which you've seen already a number of times by the time you got to chapter 14. Force couple relationships simply describe synergistic action of multiple muscles working together. That means when they contract and pull, they produce movement around a joint. Easiest way to understand force couple relationships is just look at the muscle activity at the scapula or the pelvis, right? And again, those are the two main areas that we really see force coupling relationships: osteo and arthrokinematics. Osteokinematics is limb movement. You can see limbs moving. Osteokinematics is where we use terms, kinesiological terminology, such as flexion, extension, abduction, adduction, plantar flexion, dorsiflexion at the ankle, inversion, eversion. All of those terms describe movement of limbs, right? So that's osteokinematics. Arthrokinematics, description of joint surface. So the articulating surface, right? You don't see it because you've got skin covering you. Description and the synovial capsule. So surface movement consists of three major types of movement. Osteo, remember, flexion, extension. Arthrokinematic movements, right, are going to be rolling, sliding, and spinning. Go back to chapter 5 if you don't remember those. Again, the whole point of this review is for you to go, oh, got it, I remember. Oh, yeah, absolutely, I get it. And if you don't, go back and reread and review. Go back to those chapters to look at those materials. Although I will say that they basically give you a really good rundown. Figure 14.3, really a helpful visual. The sequence of events that generally lead to injury is going to be initially muscle imbalances, which are caused by, muscle imbalances can be caused by a variety of mechanisms. So there's your possible causes of muscle imbalances. So muscle imbalances caused by what? On page 442, postural distortions, repetitive movement, cumulative trauma, emotional duress, poor training technique, poor bodily control, biased training patterns. All of those together, I guess, or one or multiple combinations of those can lead to muscle imbalances, right? And muscle imbalances would then lead to poor posture, which then leads to improper movement patterns. Remember, this takes time for this to occur, which ultimately could lead to injury. And that's what figure 14.3 is helping you with. So definitely remember those definitions. And then muscle imbalances right here. That's the main issue. Remember, muscle imbalances is the initiating cause generally of all of this, right? So once you get these muscle imbalances, overactive, underactive muscles, that's what generally leads, again, ultimately to injury. Now, when you get to page 443, again, this is a good review, altered reciprocal inhibition. First thing, make sure you know what reciprocal inhibition, when an agonist receives a signal to contract, i.e. dumbbell curls, bicep, its functional antagonist, triceps, the extensor at the elbow, receives an inhibitory signal. So in order for the bicep to work, the tricep has to stop working. In order for the tricep to work, the bicep needs to stop working. Right? Make sense? So that's the whole point of reciprocal inhibition. It's a normal process. When it becomes altered, now we're talking, however, altered reciprocal is an impairment of the human movement system. Altered is caused by an overactive agonist muscle, decreasing the neural drive to its functional antagonist. Okay. That's why you see these postural distortions. Overactive iliopsoas complex, the hip flexor. Overactive means it shortens and it pulls the joint out of whack a little bit. But when it does that, it's actually telling its functional antagonist, right, the extensor muscles at the hip, right? So iliopsoas are hip flexors, the glutes, right, and whatever other muscles you want to throw in there, or as synergists, are the extensors of the hip, like the hamstrings, glutes, gluteus maximus. Literally, though, I'm just using the iliopsoas as an example, right, or the iliacus or the psoas muscles separately, right? They're overactive. The neural drive increase actually causes the functional antagonist to decrease neural drive. That's called altered reciprocal inhibition. So there are your definitions. Overactive, when elevated neural drive causes a muscle to be held in a chronic state of contraction. Now, don't think that it's like your muscle goes like that. Generally, it's that there's an increased level of tension, and the shortening can be very minor, very minor. You just might not even see it. You might not even know it. That's why we do dynamic assessments, not just static, right? To get a really good idea of whether or not your lats are overactive. It's really hard to do that in static postural assessments. It can be very difficult just looking at somebody standing there. That's why we do the movement assessments, the dynamic assessments, because that's going to reveal what you don't see in the static. And that's all chapter 12. Overactive, underactive, synergistic dominance is just the neuromuscular phenomenon that occurs when synergists take over function for a weak or inhibited prime mover, the agonist. Do yourself a big favor, read the helpful hint box, because they give a great example talking about a basketball team. So you have the high scorer, and the high scorer who is always driving the game forward, he gets injured. And now you got some other good players, right? They're good players and they could all score, but not as good as the prime, right? The prime scorer can. And that's called synergistic dominance, right? So you want Michael Jordan in there. You want the best guy in there doing all the scoring. But if he ain't working and he's not there, okay, we'll take some of the other guys who are good, but they're just not as good. And that's what synergistic dominance means, that the synergists, the muscles that help and assist with movement patterns, they become dominant because the prime mover is maybe underactive or whatever the case is. I don't know what the issue is, but there's a reason why it's happening, and it's because the prime mover muscle is not doing its normal job. And that's what synergistic dominance means. Osteo and arthrokinematic dysfunction. Again, this is giving you a little bit more in-depth review of osteokinematics, arthrokinematics. Examples of osteokinematic movements. These are your kinesiological terminologies, right? So knee flexion, extension, adduction, abduction, rotation, or pronation, supination. And then they're giving you what you already saw in chapter 5. Remember, you're just reviewing. This is chapter 5 review. In this case, spinning joint, which is up at the elbow, right? The radial ulnar joint. The radius basically sits up against the ulnar and basically rotates around it, spins around it. Rolling is just a normal movement this way. Sliding, gliding, something like that is the actual movement of the articulating surface against the other. And that's basically what you're seeing here in figure 14.8. Altered length tension relationship when a muscle's resting length is too short or too long. Overactive muscles have an altered length tension relationship. Okay, you can go back and review. Again, I think it's chapter 5. Normal length tension relationship is like on figure 14.4. That's normal. When the agonist and the antagonist are at their normal resting length. Altered length tension means that one is shortened, so it's not able to produce proper tension because of its shortened length, and then the other one is lengthened, and it's going to be the same thing. It also cannot produce the proper force because it's either lengthened or shortened. And that's what altered length tension relationship is. Make sure you know the difference between altered force couple relationships, altered length tension relationships, altered reciprocal inhibition. Make sure you know the difference between those guys. Of course, neuromuscular efficiency leads us to understanding the muscle spindles and Golgi tendon organs. So the Stretch Your Knowledge box on page 445 is very helpful. You got an entire listing of definitions that, again, it's a review. So please make sure you understand that now. If you want to go ahead and get confused, maybe look at figure 14.10. It's not necessary. But I hope that this review was helpful because, again, what ends up happening is once you've moved through all of these chapters, particularly chapter 5 was way back when you first started studying. Chapter 14 brings you back into the fray, so to speak, because now it helps you to understand the whole concept of flexibility training. And I've done other videos specifically on just stretching, SMR, things related to the stretching or the flexibility chapter itself. But this video was really designed to get your head back in the game with the human movement system. And I hope it was helpful on that end. Please keep in mind, if you found this particular video helpful, you understood the explanation of the definitions that I went over, please type the word understand in the comment section below. By the way, if you want full access to the NASM exam study materials that we provide at Body Design University, then please go ahead and click inside the description box that link that you see in there. Again, we have all the chapter reviews, audio book, quizzes, and Quizlet, by the way, an entire Quizlet course just on the NASM textbook itself, and of course practice exams to go along with it. And you do have access to ask me questions at any time when you're going through the actual study. So please go ahead and click on that link. Also, one other thing, Wednesday nights, Eastern time, 6 p.m. We do Quizlet live. It is a great way to, number one, come into the community of other folks that are studying for their NASM, as well as a great study time, 30 minutes, so 6 to 6:30 p.m. Eastern time, and we do Quizlet live, so it's a competition. And it's a lot of fun. It's fast. And by the way, when you get in there, if it's your first time doing it, don't worry about it. You just keep coming every Wednesday night. You'll get better and better at it. Again, very helpful from a studying perspective. As always, leave comments below. If there were other videos that you also found helpful, you can let us know in the comments section as well. By the way, if you have a particular area in the NASM textbook that you want a little bit more in-depth explanation of, the comment section is the place to put it. And we appreciate you coming on board as always. We will see you next week. Take care.